Oh man. Well, with that, I think we got to look at what comes in the future, because it is crazy to believe that as of recording, it is January 2nd, 2025. I mean,
2025.
It's hard to believe we're already halfway through the year. And I believe next week I'm going to have on one of my guests that is going to be doing another tier list with me, and that one is going to be looking at some of the best video games of 2025 so far. He's a massive gamer. He's actually got a couple gaming leagues, so I think he's well qualified to speak on it. And
the expert.
Oh yeah, 100%. That one's going to be really interesting. So if you're still listening, make sure you guys go check that out when it drops next Friday. That should be the... Pardon my pause. That should be the 17th when that drops. So that'll be really interesting. But yeah, so I think it's worth looking at kind of what the new year looks like and holds for us. And I'd really love to hand it over to you and kind of give you a chance to talk about your channel. You're the first person that I've actually had on that actually has a YouTube channel. And so I definitely want to make sure you get the chance to promote that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, so you're asking what my channel's about first and foremost before talking about plans, or?
Yeah, sort of what your channel's about, what stuff you plan to make, what stuff you've already made, what direction you kind of want to go in. Just kind of give us an idea of who you are and what you're doing here.
Well, sure, absolutely. My main channel is The Voice of Iron, and the whole thing about that is I've been making music under the moniker of Ironsmith for a while. I do have a music channel, but for the longest time, a lot of people, just unprompted, mind you, this is not me tooting my own horn, unprompted people were like, you should do something with voice, or you should do something with radio, and I guess enough people finally said it to where I was like, I can try that, sure. Problem, I had absolutely no idea how to even start that, so I was like, well, why don't I just read stuff and see how it goes? So years ago, I decided, why don't I try and read some SCPs? I think I read one, gave it a break for a couple of years because I didn't know what I was doing, and then came back and was like, no, I'm gonna take this seriously. And I made it a challenge to myself to read 100 SCPs because I grew up with SCP Foundation, it's public domain, it's fun, it's interesting, and I like it. So I started just reading SCPs, and at some point when I got more comfortable with editing and with actually putting stuff together, I want to try talking about other stuff. So I would rant every now and then. I tried other stuff like reading some Lovecraft works and reading some stuff from Elite Dangerous. And then one of these unscripted rants opened a rabbit hole that I was not expecting. I made a simple rant called Battletech / Mech Warrior is cool, because I genuinely think that it's one of my favorite settings of all time. It exploded. I was used to getting maybe 20 to 30 views tops because some of my friends, were being nice and watching my channel. But suddenly there were hundreds of views. I think it's up to 1.2 thousand or something, and I was like, oh my gosh.
That's 1.3 actually. I've got it right here.
Oh wow.
and hopefully more after this, because I'm going to put the little pop-up there so they'll be able to go and click and watch that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But it was unscripted. It was me talking about just how cool I think the setting is. And I got a bunch of comments, not just the bot comments you get from early channel stuff, because I'm sure you've seen it every now and then. You just upload a video and you get a bot saying something. But these were real people. They were talking about their experiences with Battletech, and I was like, okay. So I tried reading some more about Battletech because I do love the setting. And so there was an appetite for it. More people were commenting, and I was like, you mean to tell me I can just ramble about one of my favorite settings of all time and people will listen to it? Yes. So I've been doing a lot of that. So my channel's kind of pivoted from SCP and spooky readings to a lot of Battletech, but in general, just anything that I think is interesting. So looking to the future, a lot more Battletech, but a lot more just tabletop, sci-fi, that kind of stuff. I intend to keep ramping up both scripted and unscripted Battletech content. Scripted being reading actual pre-existing lore, and then the unscripted being talking about experiences with the game on the table in the video games. But I don't want to abandon the spooky roots wholesale. I'm cooking a little something in the background for a big writing project. I'm also a very small scale author. One of the things on my channel is, in fact, a story that I wrote back in college, just to challenge myself, like, hey, can I write a book? How hard is it to write a book? And I figured that the easiest way to answer that was to try it. So I took an idea that was in my head for some years and I wrote it, and it's like novella length. It's called Dreams of Rain, and I uploaded eventually all of the chapters on the channel.
Oh, wow.
It's not I was gonna say, it's not, I'm not gonna call it groundbreaking or anything like that, but it was a nice little kind of sci-fi cyberpunk story that I had in my head throughout college, and was like, why don't I just do it? I may as well write something down, because if I write nothing, then it'll just kind of die in my head, so why not just write it? And I did, and I intend to keep writing. So that said, there's a couple of things I hope to cook up throughout 2025, but we'll see how busy the year gets. But yeah, a lot of Battletech and tabletop content, and some potential writing content as well. And of course, one day I might tackle the beast that is 40K, but because I have a lot of stories with that, and the best faction, the orcs.
Wow, but, that's a statement.
I'll handle that. They're the only ones having fun. Everybody else in the setting is either depressed, angry, trying to reclaim old glory, hungry, or some other flavor of things are so bad. The orcs are the only one having fun. They are the only ones who are genuinely looking around the apocalyptic universe and going, yeah, this is the life. It's great. Also, like, just a brief story. Thanks to tabletop shenanigans and like one or two stratagems from an old edition, I remember a player came with an amazingly painted Valkyrie. He had a bunch of elite units. We're talking like Helldiver looking dudes, scions for anyone interested. He had his commander and an elite team of scions inside of a Valkyrie, which is like a flying vehicle. Imagine a helicopter, but it looks more like a plane designed in the 1980s. This thing's flying onto the table, and it is a massive threat. I jumped a dune buggy that looks like it was made in Mad Max up a ramp and destroyed it by ramming into it. I killed myself too, but I mean, do you think of the orcs inside care? It was cool. I ended up winning that fight because his like very serious team and his headquarters was in there, and I just straight up jumped a dune buggy into it and blew it up. It was fun. That's the kind of ridiculousness I love about 40K. I'm sorry, 40K rant. In short, I'm going to be talking about a lot of tabletop stuff, a lot of sci-fi stuff, and possibly some cool little, possibly spooky writing throughout the year. So look for that if you're interested.
There you go. There's the voice of Iron. It's funny you mentioned 40K, because that's something that we'd always kind of toyed with on Velvet Games. I have very little experience with 40K at all. The most that I've done is I've played through a portion of Space Marine 2, mainly because I've had some technical difficulties with that game. I'm going to try to reboot it shortly, but there's just so many games. Like right now I'm playing through Ghost of Tsushima. I did a little bit of a replay on Cyberpunk. I got a different hard drive, so I was trying to see like how quickly it would load and see about all the technical stuff. Let's see, what else was I playing? The new Indiana Jones game. I actually did a video. I
read your review on that, or I listened to your review on that.
You got the review on that. I've been trying to play through it. I will say, the game it's good. The story's really good, and it's more open world than I thought it was going to be. I still have the problem with the loading. The loading between...
I was gonna say, but it's not optimized.
No, it's not. Like, I can tell that they've definitely released some patches and stuff to try to fix a good portion of that, but at the same token, the ones that really matter, I feel like they haven't done anything to optimize. Maybe they're just like hot fixes as opposed to actually optimization patches. I haven't seen anything come through lately on it. Then again, the game is only about a month old at this point, so it's not like it's had all this time to fix these things. They may be working on it behind the scenes. I just wish that these companies would be a little bit more transparent and say, hey, we hear you, we understand that we're having issues with this. We're working on something to fix this, or hey, this is more difficult than we thought it was going to be. It might be a little while. Because then that tells me, like, I'm not just going crazy, and it's not that my, mid-tier, and I do say it's mid-tier, like it's an i5, it's not an i7 or an i9, but like I'm
Right.
well within the scope of, I think it's like a 5.2 gigahertz processor. Like they only ask for a 3.9, so I'm well within the scope of being able to play this game.
Right.
So we'll see what happens with that. But just all things
course.
together, like I haven't had a lot of time to even play games as it is. Even though I've been sick, Ghost of Tsushima, I had to try it. Because that game is really good, by the way. I thoroughly enjoy it, even if the plot line feels a little on the flat side and the dialogue can feel a little forced at times. I feel like the gameplay is so good, it just justifies that. It's all the best things of like Assassin's Creed and Far Cry put together in what's the era? I almost said Sengoku. That's not it. Kamakura era. So
right.
it's the Mongol invasion. Like, have you played Ghost of Tsushima?
I have not yet played Ghost of Tsushima. Not at this time. Like, Elden Ring is still giving me trouble just to give a piece of perspective. But yeah, no, I've not yet played Ghost of Tsushima at this time. It might be on the list at some point, but I'd have to get through Elden Ring first, let alone, in fact, I'm working through MechWarrior 5 Clans now, because of course it's a MechWarrior game that I'm currently playing through. Oh yeah, definitely. But you mentioned at the beginning of this that you haven't had much time for 40K. Fair enough. I tell you what, I started back in 7th edition. I have played it on the table. I've played a lot of the video games. If you ever want to talk about that game, or the setting, actually, more accurately the setting, feel free to have me on. I've got a lot of stories. I can talk about the tabletop version. I can talk about the like actual fiction behind it, some of the controversies with GW, and of course some of the video games.
Oh, that sounds like an episode there. So I might just have to take you up on that offer.
Oh yeah. I've got a massive shelf behind me of orcs just staring down. That's what got me into painting models. By the way, if anyone has heard, I don't know if he's edited it out successfully, but any like weird water sounds or like tapping sounds in the background, I'm painting in the background right now as we're talking. I always got to do something with my hands. I feel you.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those games that, like, especially on the tabletop, I see it as extremely expensive and cumbersome.
Yes.
And that's my main issue with it, is it's like I don't have the money or space to put the things. Especially
Kill Team fixed.
Oh no, go for it.
I was gonna say, they released something called Kill Team, which technically has existed for some time now, but Kill Team is effectively a squad scale version of the game, where instead of having to have a whole army, like classic 40K, you need only, it's basically squad versus squad. I think the absolute maximum number of models you can have is 20, and even then, your average kill team is about like 10 people or less. I mean, as an orc player, I've got like, it's like a team of 10 for me, but that's just it. Like, it is small scale. Space Marine players get 6. They get 6 models total.
Wow.
And so you can get into 40K. They're sneaky this way. It can be your gateway drug. You get into it by just buying like a box of models and you're done. But yeah, so if you ever wanted an inexpensive way to get in on the table, Kill Team is, and they've been giving a lot of support lately, so give that a shot. But yeah, no, it is expensive when it comes to the full scale. I am not going to lie. GW prices are ridiculous. It's not just inflation. It's always been a lot. I do not want to calculate how much money I've spent on the orcs that are sitting on my shelf. It probably outstrips the rest of my lifestyle.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's a lot.
Truthfully, I see it as like, especially if I can really get into the lore, I might consider it in the future. Yeah. But, like the fact that I only make so much money and then I gotta pay for this and that and the other thing, and then conventions, like,
oh yeah,
I'm constantly broke as it is, so we'll have to see.
Oh yeah, no, my friends in the community have referred to it as plastic crack, because that's kind of exactly what it is.
I hear you.
Be cautious.
I actually got to sit in on a squad game one time with some of the guys on the who were formerly on the channel.
Yeah,
and that was it was an interesting experience, but I also had an event that I had to go to the next day, and it was like I'm looking at the clock. It's like 10:30, and I'm like, guys, how long does this go for? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, it's already been like 4.5 hours. Like, how much longer is this going to be? And they're like, could run another 6. And I'm like, well, I think I gotta get going then.
Yeah, that's 40k for you, because there's a couple of scales. Your average kill team game takes maybe an hour. You know, it's thankfully very streamlined. Regular 40k, when I was doing competitions back at my local game store, the competitions usually allotted about an hour and a half to 2 hours for the rounds, depending on how many points the game is worth. By the way, for reference, your average game of 40k is around 2,000 points. Some competitions would be less, close to 1,000. Some would be more, close to 3,000. Big Army usually has about 2,000. It's your standard fare. Anyway, that's usually about 2, maybe 3 hours per game for your typical 40k game. When you get into the higher scales, like what's called Apocalypse, where the goal is just to bring your collection, we'll fight it. That can take hours to days.
Wow.
Yeah, I've only played Apocalypse games once or twice. Thankfully, both of them only took about a full day, but we're talking like we get there in the morning, someone orders a bunch of pizza, and we leave like around midnight.
Yeah.
But regular 40k games only take about an hour or two, and then Kill Team is pretty streamlined. I've played a Kill Team game in 30 minutes.
Wow.
That's because I was obliterated immediately, but yeah, I was gonna say, a lot about an hour for something like Kill Team, a lot about 2 for a full 40k game. I assume the new edition is, I haven't even tried the new edition, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, full scale 40k, yeah, that's a day eater right there.
Oh yeah, and it's funny because, you know, I'd always seen shows like Stranger Things and whatnot with D&D before I really got to, because I didn't grow up with D&D. Yeah. I was introduced to it by a friend who kept saying, hey, you gotta play this, you gotta try it. And I was like, well, I guess it seems, you know, interesting enough. I can give it a try. And of course, I'd seen Stranger Things at that point, so I was like, okay, well, I kind of get the idea. It seems nerdy, but I guess I'm kind of nerdy, so I can try it. And then I played it, and I never looked back since. I was like, this is awesome. And, you know, I'd always seen them, especially with, like, you know, Stranger Things. They've got the old school, they're probably playing, like, 2nd edition at that point or whatever, but, you know, they're playing it for literal, like, a multi-day campaign, but they'll spend you know, like 14 hours playing a single session. And I always thought, like, that's too much, that's too long. And I mean, even today I'm like, okay, I got stuff to do. 14 hours is too much, too long. But at the same token, I see that as like, okay, I understand why they're spending that much time on it.
Yes,
because you really get,
oh my
it's
gosh.
not even like a I have to, it's a I want to. You get lost in it.
Yes, you do. I do not know my record for longest session, but I do comfortably like to have about 3-hour sessions. In fact, I've got a game later tonight. We've been running through Tomb of Annihilation. There was one point in my life, and this was when I realized I had a problem, where the way that my day went was I worked a 9 to 5 at the time. So, well, technically it was like 8 to 4:30, but
point made.
I would do my work. I would have about an hour of downtime, and then around about 7 each day, I allotted for tabletop games because I had enough of my friend groups who were equally addicted to these games. It got to the point where I was unironically playing 6 tabletop games a week. That's Monday. I think we had... Yeah, I took Friday off from tabletop games, and then there was a Saturday and a Sunday game. And if life happened, I basically just told them I couldn't make it that particular session. I've scaled it back since, but these games really are addicting. It's so good.
Oh yeah.
I've learned that less is more these days, because now I'm like, okay, give me a campaign that only lasts 12 sessions and allows my character to have a full arc. I would rather that than a game that I can keep going back to for 100 sessions. I think my longest, I calculated it, my longest ever running campaign went from 1 all the way through 20 plus, and by plus I mean 5e has epic boons past level 20. And that lasted over the course of 3 years, 107 total sessions,
Wow.
96 of which were the actual mainline session, and a bunch of which were kind of side sessions with characters in the same universe that affected the plot. 107 sessions is, I believe, my longest campaign. It's addictive, and while it's fun to do that, as time goes on, I more am like, let me run 10 sessions for you.
Yeah.
That will be memorable. And because I ran the Spelljammer module, the Spelljammer 5e module.
Oh boy.
And it was a lot of fun. It was 12 sessions. My players were a little slow, and I calculated my travel time poorly. Or more specifically, I wanted to give them more time to do stuff during their massive travel time, which the module kind of skips over a little.
It skips over it entirely, because the whole a side note, and I'll make this brief because we're already running kind of on overtime, but
sorry. Yeah.
No, you're good. I'm having a good time. The thing about Spelljammer, especially the new version, the one they released for 5e, I don't I understand what they're trying to do, but I don't think they do it in a way that makes a lot of sense player wise. Like, it makes sense within the universe, sure. Doesn't make sense for players, because the thing is, especially in the Astral Sea, there is no passage of time. So
no, not really. You and I should have an episode on this, actually, because I have a lot of positive to say about you. I have a lot of criticisms with WotC, but I actually have a lot of positives to say about that particular module. I see there are problems I have with it, but of the modules of 5th edition, it is one of the few that I'm actually like, they did good with this. Despite its flaws.
I don't disagree. Part of my problem was, though, that it was supposed to be like for reference, I'm technically running a Spelljammer campaign. It's been a minute since we played. One of our players kind of fell off. He's got stuff going on in his life, and it's like, okay, understandable. We're down a player, so we've only got 3 left, and 2 that would actually be willing to be on the podcast at any given time. So, maybe at some point we pick that back up, but it was basically supposed to be basically a sequel, if you will, to the longest campaign I've ever run, which I think was like 16 sessions, 16 to 18 sessions. I can't remember the exact number of them, but basically it was, I wouldn't say railroaded, but definitely it had a formed story that was leading them on a path. They were still very much making decisions, but because it was in the Hells for the majority of it, like, how exploratory can you make that with 9 different layers? Like, it like, even in the lore, there's almost nothing to go off of. It's just like these empty, hot places, some of them cold, with occasionally you'll have this feature within one of the circles, and it's like, okay, cool. What do I do with that? So then I would like have to embellish it or quickly lead them through an area and say, okay, you go here, you end up here. Here's this thing off in the distance. Well, it's the only thing for miles, so it must be what you have to go to. It led them in this direction, and then with this, it's supposed to be several hundred years in the future. But there's a catch to it. Magic doesn't exist per se anymore. It does, but it doesn't. Think of it like, the best way to describe it. Basically, the weave is fractured. It's split into many components where magic as a whole, as like an elemental thing, still exists, but mages can no longer channel it because the weave was sort of like what they use to harness the source of magic as opposed to be what magic is.
So you can't, like, you would have to literally, like, forge your own direct connection rather than the threads that permeated the universe if you're going by the Forgotten Realms here.
Kind of. Basically, so a lot of this stuff is very just out of my head, because like I'd mentioned previously to you, I really like the concept of sort of homebrewing your own stuff, making your own campaigns, so you're really intimate with them. In this case, basically think of like what happened was they defeated the big baddie, right? When that happened, there was basically this fracturing of the weave that occurred, but the weave sort of manifested as a physical thing, and these shards basically like were launched all over the multiverse, and it was literally like resin, like think of it like resin from the sap of the world tree, if you will. Like it's like these little crystallized fragments of the weave that they're utilizing. And I think we called them I think I called them spirit shards or something like that instead of soul gems, but it's basically soul gems from Skyrim. They are a source of magic. So casters can still cast, but they have to have these things on hand instead of spell slots. But that can also be really overpowered because now you can have someone with like 50 level 1 spell slots if they have the gold for it. And they can just keep casting them. But then as you want to cast something higher, they get much more expensive and rare. To eventually, like, you're not going to find a level 9, you know, a spirit shard, where you won't be able to cast a level 9, you know, a spell. Like, it's so rare that you may not be able to find one. And then there's like hypothetically a level 10 one, but like it's extraordinarily rare to the point that it's rumor if it even exists. It's sort of like what is it, Einstein's coefficients, like for the theory of relativity. It's like, okay, technically black holes could exist, but we have no proof of it until eventually you find one.
Right, until some player character does some OC stuff and finds or gets one.
Exactly. Yeah. So sort of having to redesign Spelljammer in that design to make it so that they run on these spirit shard things. There's like certain rules to it, but then it's like, okay, it's also futuristic, so that gives rise to the Artificer as a class. Artificers are really powerful now, but they are basically broke wizards because everything they build has to require money. And then we have to look at the Artificer because like Alex, who's you'll hopefully meet him on the channel at some point. He's playing this character and he's like, okay, I'm gonna be an Artificer, and I'm looking at the rules. And he's like, yeah, so according to this, I can just make magic items. I'm like, well, in theory, if you had access to the weave, you could do that, but it doesn't make sense for you to just be able to manifest magic things. He's like, no, I could just manifest them. I'm like, no, we're changing the rules here because the whole system's kind of busted and this is homebrew.
I was gonna say,
so
you got to put a shard in that now. You need batteries.
Exactly. Batteries not included.
There you go.
So, you know, like in theory, you could do stuff like that. And then we managed to figure something out. I don't know how well it ended up turning out. We put a major pause on it because everyone got busy. I'd love to do that on the channel again at some point, but we'll see. But no, that like my biggest issue with the Spelljammer is the fact that they gave you this system that didn't include anything with smoke powder. Like smoke powder cannons is just really not a thing. It's all harpoons and stuff, and I'm like, why?
Oh, so that's. Oh man, I'm gonna end up going on a rant on Spelljammer. Let's see if I can do this abridged. Kind of. So the GIF, GIFF, the hippo folk, they are obsessed with black powder weapons. So they do very, very much exist. And in fact, they are the greatest manufacturers of it in the multiverse. However, one of the reasons why black powder weapons are not nearly as popular, aside from the fact that, you know, magic has been enhancing bows and stuff like that forever. And sometimes when you can launch a fireball, it's just more cost effective to hire a wizard than it is to mount a cannon on your thing, is because sometimes it doesn't work. And I'm not joking about this. This is 2nd edition lore in Greyhawk, in Grey Space, the sphere that is the Greyhawk setting. The gods said no. And what I mean by that is the gods of that setting straight up said, black powder doesn't work because Gygax didn't want guns in the setting, and the literal in-universe explanation is that the gods say it doesn't work. So if you fly into gray space and your entire ship was using black powder weaponry, they stop working. Congrats, you're now unarmed. It just won't ignite. So a lot of spelljammers that do a lot of trade or go through the spheres either use a secondary armament that's not black powder, or more often, a primary armament that's not black powder, such as mangonels and crossbows. Now, personally, I like cannons, and the GIF as a race, no matter if it works in gray space or not, is like, I'm putting a big cannon on it, because they're cool. But that is one of the reasons why you don't see it on very many ships. And one of the reasons I like the module, because it didn't forget that tiny fact.
That's really interesting.
I know. The second edition lore is bonkers. And with two exceptions, one big and one small, the 5th edition book is extremely loyal to the old lore. The big exception is the Astral Sea was not how spelljamming worked between spheres in the old edition. It was something called the phlogiston, which I have my own theories about, but in short, it was literal, like, rainbow fluid that's highly flammable in between the spheres, and the spheres float in it like bubbles, and you fly with that. I cheekily nodded at this when I ran the campaign by implying that spelljammers started using the Astral Sea as a more efficient transit method, because it is dangerous to go through the phlogiston. You don't have contact with your gods when you're there, and if you die there, your soul can't get to the afterlife, so it's crazy. Oh, and if you light anything on fire, you die.
You're giving me stuff to go off of, man. Like, I'm gonna be stealing this from you now.
I know. Oh, please do, please do. In short, basically, it is a heavy retcon. It is something that is changed, but I hand wave it as, oh no, the phlogiston's still real, but no one in their right mind still uses it, or it's mostly pirates and old folk who will still use it. And then the second thing they changed was probably for copyright. There was an important race that sells spelljamming helms called the Arcane. They are giants. They are about 8 feet tall, though, 8 or 9 feet tall, and they are pacifistic, but they sell spelljamming helms. In the new edition, they refer to them as the Mercanes. I again cheekily nodded to the fact that we had to change our name for marketing purposes when I ran the game, but those are the only two things I could find different. The Rock of Brawl, identical. I mean straight up identical. I literally had the 2nd and the 5th edition side by side. There is pretty much nothing I could find that was actually changed. Large Luigi's bar is still there. It's a neutral beholder, by the way, who runs a bar. He's awesome. The history of the place is still the same. They don't mention the word slavery in 5th edition, but they also do not shy away from the fact that prisoners still work the fields on the lower half of the asteroid, so that's the same.
Yeah.
The idea of crystal spheres is not gone. They kind of skip over it, except for a big part of the module where you find, mild spoiler alert, a shattered one, and they treat it with the gravity it should be, because nothing should have been able to shatter it. And they mention that in the module. You can't hurt it, and it's implied to be a disaster, the fact that this thing is destroyed.
Wow.
I get the feeling that the reason the transit times are even in there is because those are consistent with going through the phlogiston, and at some point in the module development process, they wanted to put the Astral Sea in it, so they kind of tried to merge the ideas. Other than the fact that I'm like, you're really changing a core part, I'm able to hand wave it in my own head and be like, you know what, I can make sense of this, it's fine, and they're loyal enough with the rest of it to where they stay in my good graces. I like Spelljammer 5e. It's not my favorite setting. My favorite setting's Ravenloft, but that's a whole topic.
Yeah, that would be a whole topic, man. Yeah,
it is.
At this point, you know, not only am I gonna have to split this episode into 2 parts, which I absolutely will do. So if we want to go for a few more minutes, that's okay. That's okay. You know what? That they end up being better because they flow well. So I'm okay with that.
Fair.
But we'll definitely have to have you on again beyond this, because like this is not only is it a lot of fun, but I can tell there's a lot of stuff to talk about, especially within like the D&D world. I think video games, other anime, like there's endless opportunities. So to quickly touch on before I want to circle back to another topic there, but
sure.
Before that, I want to mention for the listeners what we're looking at this year. I don't have any immediate plans for let's put it this way. My original goal was with the back cover to be able to do game news and reviews. So far it's just been reviews, which I'm going to continue that as much as I can. I have another game. It should be out by now, actually, by the time you're listening to this episode. Actually, by the time you're listening to this episode, it definitely will be out. And I'll probably be working on the next one. But as of recording this, we probably, it's just a few days away. For another game that we're going to come out with. Not even going to say what that is, because you should see it by now, but I will have it pop up in your top right corner right now. But we'll continue on with reviews on a monthly basis. Game news is a little bit more difficult mainly because there hasn't been a lot of news. And not to say that there isn't, but there hasn't been. It's a lot of speculation and leaks. And I don't like discussing leaks, particularly for the reason that it can negatively affect game creators in the way that not only is their stuff being effectively stolen, but also it then holds them to potentially unrealistic deadlines. For example, if someone says
Cyberpunk.
Yeah, Cyberpunk is a great example, but for example, let's say just a hypothetical, Half-Life 3. There are some rumors that they're going to be coming out with Half-Life 3 sometime this year. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's been a rumor for many years. So I don't know when or
most of my life.
Yeah, like I don't know when or if this is actually going to happen at any time. I'm sure they're working on it at some point, but when is the real question? Like Half-Life Alyx was not Half-Life 3. Just gonna put that out there. Anyway, let's say that there is a leak that shows, hey, they're in mid-stage development. They're working on the, they got the story down. They're working on coding and modeling right now. And we estimate that it should be done within 6 months. Well, what if the game needs another year and a half?
Yeah.
Now this creator is being held to an unrealistic standard. And I know that some people would say, well, they're going to potentially need more time. But then there's that group of people that is going to get insanely angry when they don't reach this imaginary deadline. And then you get situations like Cyberpunk, or you get situations like No Man's Sky, where it was released way before it should have come out. And I don't want to do that to people. I'm going to kind of reassess and see where we're going with that, because I do think game news is a thing, but I might just make that short segments. Like you might see a short pop up and say, hey, we got this thing coming out, here's a little information, boom, you have that. We haven't done anything like that yet, but it's mainly because the news cycle's been quiet. As new things are announced, especially I think the fact that we're in January, not a lot of people are launching games in January because they recognize everybody's broke from Christmas. So we'll see where that goes, but we're looking at that. I might get into gameplay this year. I've actually considered doing Twitch streaming, so we'll see about possibly going on that, and definitely bringing on more guests for more Tavern talks. I may even consider doing a long form D&D. If you guys are interested, you who are listening to this are interested in seeing a long running D&D session on the channel, no more than an hour and a half to 2 hours per video, let me know, because I'll find ways to split this. Like, I want to make it clear it would be over Discord. We want to keep this format going for now. Eventually we might do something a little bit different, play with some formats, but if you want to see that, please tell me down in the comments, like the video. I want to see that there's interest in it before we go and do this, because it is a big effort to run a D&D session over Discord and record it so that it's entertaining to watch.
I was gonna say, careful, I love D&D. Well, more specifically, tabletop role-playing games. I'll get into rants, I'm sure, at some point about my thoughts on 5th edition and 5.5e, or whatever they're calling it now. But I love tabletops, so careful there.
No, it's nothing against tabletops. Truly, like, I thoroughly enjoy them.
Oh, no, what I mean is, I'm sorry, what I mean by careful is, like, I might be interested.
Oh, but then the offer extends to you as well. We would just have to find the timing for it, because
exactly.
It's usually a situation we end up recording on like a Thursday night or something. We usually go by Jonathan's schedule. He was one of the players in the D&D video that we just recorded the other day. Or I should say, released the other day, because we recorded it almost a month ago. But
that's how it goes.
Yeah, that's honestly, well, especially with that one, like, oh my gosh, for the time that it took me to actually like record the thing, it probably took me 3 or 4 times as much just to get the thing ready to actually put out there.
Oh yeah.
I rendered it twice, and I got lucky with it because there weren't any procedural generation, but some of the stuff I do on this channel, it has procedural generation with like light flicker and things to make it a little bit more interesting. and that takes an eternity to render. Like each frame will
Oh my gosh,
like
yeah.
each frame will take upwards of like 3 or 4 seconds to render. And if I'm rendering an hour-long video, it actually took me one time, I think it was a 6-hour render and a 15-hour upload. I don't even understand that last one.
Wow. Oh, I feel that. You may have noticed, if you've seen my channel at all, that most of my videos are just a static image. And that's not... First off, that's because the rendering time is insane, but also I expect people to just be listening to what I'm doing, like while they're painting or while they're playing or while they're driving. So I did not prioritize video. I may one day, but yeah, no, I was not gonna mess with it early on. May in the future, but I feel you is what I'm trying to say. I looked at it and went, nope, I'm prioritizing voice.
Yeah. Well, especially like when it's really long format, you're talking an hour plus stuff. Like the chances of someone seeing something at 42 minutes and 65 seconds,
Gosh,
like the chances of anyone even seeing that are slim to none. I do still include it because on the off chance someone does watch, first of all, to the listener who is actually watching this, thank you. I do put an effort to make this palatable. But the fact that, YouTube is such a fickle beast, on top of the fact that it's really just made for video, I wish they had a better component for audio, because if that were the case and it was just audio, I would absolutely have this in just audio. Like the amount of time to render in audio would be probably 1/10 the time it takes to render it in video.
It's relatively short. I've rendered like, I think like a half-hour audio down, and it only took about 15 minutes. Now that said, that very audio that I rendered, I listened through, and there was a single like sharp sound in the middle of it, and so I had to render the whole thing again.
Yeah.
But
then they're done that.
Exactly. I can only imagine doing that with something that took like 15 hours to render, because I'm not, not messing with it.
There's been a couple times where like the one that really bugged me is I released a video that took, like I said, it was like a 12-hour upload or something like that, ridiculous, on YouTube, and then I later realized, crap, I forgot to put in the like, comment, and subscribe, and ring the bell thing. And I'm like, cool, I'm not re-rendering that for that purpose. If you're watching the video, you're probably either considered liking it or you already have liked it. If you haven't, please like the video. But
I usually don't put that in mind, not because I have anything against it or anything, but because first and foremost, like, I feel like it allows me to jump right in, and then yes, it is a good reminder. Like, there's a reason why the top creators do it. It does legitimately remind people, oh, I didn't push like yet. But to the same degree, I feel like most people kind of have their own instinctive, like, watch it and then like it whenever they feel comfortable with it. So I usually don't bother. So I don't think that hurt your algorithm any.
No, yeah, and I mean, I try to include it when I can, but if I don't, it's not like the end of the world.
Exactly. Some people are like, no, you must have it in every YouTube video, and I'm like, careful, Worf. This is just chill,
100%. But
oh man,
yeah. So we'll definitely have to look at even if we don't do it on the channel, and like I said, let me know if you want to see it on the channel. But if we don't end up doing something on the channel, we'll definitely have to get you with the other guys. I think you would vibe well with Alex. Very much so with Jonathan too. Jonathan is a unique character, but the two of them together are already fun. You throw in a third person, and what's funny is at like, oh man, I want to say it was like the second hour. It was almost at the end of the video for the D&D video we did. Alex says, what would have made this a lot better? A third person. I'm like, yeah. Oh, yeah. I was like, listen, I'm asking around. Nobody's available. It's like, you guys are available and wanting to do this. I did ask multiple people, and they're just, it's like right around Christmas. They're doing stuff, so it is what it is.
Oh yeah.
Next,
life is busy. You know how it goes.
This year's D&D, and I do think I want to do it again this year. With something slightly different, but I think this year will be a little bit better for that. Mainly just, not only do I now have new people to add to it, but also I have a much larger window to start prepping that. I really started making these things back again around, oh geez, I think like September of last year. So it's not like, you know, I've had a lot of extra time to think about that. I was kind of like getting situated and figuring out like, okay, you know, what is our thumbnails going to look like? You know, what kind of content do we want to put out? What format do we like?
Right.
And then just kind of ran with it. And then as we get close to November, I'm like, we got plenty of time. And then, you know, December rolls around. I'm like, oh no, I've got like 2 weeks to record
exactly.
this. So.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, the classic creator problem is, what can I get done on my list of video ideas today?
Right?
You know, the nice thing about BattleTech readings and BattleTech like stuff with the mechs especially is I have a number of mechs that I have painted, like model-wise, and I'm like, okay, if I've played this either on the table or in the video games, or especially both, I can do that. I can do that fairly straightforward. And there's so many, it's just like a Pokemon level of mechs, like number of mechs. So that always gives me something to talk about. But to the same degree, I also have a bunch of video ideas where I've got stuff written down and I'm like, when am I gonna do this? So I feel you, man.
Oh, tell me about it. I mean, and it frustrates me too, because like, I don't think I actually mentioned this, but shameless self-promotion, it's technically in it's in the works because we're trying to find a new supplier, but we actually made a card game. Game is called
neat.
Rise to Riches, and it is all about collecting what am I saying? It's all about collecting artifacts in an archaeological setting faster than your friends.
Neat. I see the Indiana Jones inspiration there.
Well, the thing is, I grew up with Indiana Jones, so that was a big one. My dad loves to watch Expedition Unknown with Josh Gates and all that. Ooh. So you got that.
Yeah.
I've known some people that were really big, like Egyptologist style people. You know, they really enjoyed Egyptology. I've been to a couple Egyptian exhibits and whatnot in different museums. I thought that was very cool.
Nice.
And just the concept of history, like I'm a big history buff.
Oh, heck yeah.
You know, just the concept of being able to kind of interact with history on a level like that not everybody who knows this stuff would still be able to, you know, anyone who doesn't know this stuff would be able to pick it up and play it and interact with it and maybe learn from it, you know? So it is moderately educational. On the well, I say this because it uses elements from different environments. So like for Egypt, for example, I've got an entire section on the website that's dedicated just to Egyptian history and sort of a like, did you know sort of thing, with it then links to like the Smithsonian and the British Museum and the Egyptian Museum to be able to like go and learn neat. About the stuff and really kind of interact with history on a greater level.
I like that.
But you know, it's been difficult. Unfortunately, our Kickstarter did not succeed. I think we went about the advertisement wrong, or at least we didn't hit it in the way that it probably could have been hit.
Right.
So we'll be.
There's always a lesson to be taken from such things.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, you know, we're gonna end up sitting down and figuring out another way to get it out. We have a few ideas. It's just a matter of trying to get it out there to the people that actually are interested in such a thing. So, you know, that with that, we are technically game creators, and I have a lot of different ideas to be able to be like, oh, I want to do this, and I want to do that, I want to do this. And if I could just materialize them and then kick them to somebody and say, hey, can you go market this for me and get it sold? I could be churning out games left and right. So when you talk about, you know, the concept of like, you know, I have all these ideas, but I got to pace myself and figure out what do I actually want to do with them and what do I have time to do, you know, what's worth it.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of where I sit, because like, I'd love to make a video game. I think that would be really, really cool. Yeah. But I don't know the first thing about, well, that's not true. I actually have a degree in software development, but I'm sorry. I was just going to say, like, when it comes to video games specifically, I don't know the coding engines. I don't know how that works. And I feel like it would be a lot of time and effort to just get that first bit to be able to then develop something.
Absolutely. So either way, the future seems to look bright, and I'm very interested to see what 2025 brings.
100%.
Hopefully we don't look back on 2025 going, Well, we did say that, huh?
You know what? It's knock on wood, right? Like at the end of the day, there's nothing you can do about it except your absolute best. I do think that there's
just go for it. Have fun.
It feels like there's a lot of opportunity this year. I'm not even sure what's making me say that, but I felt like it
feels like it. You know?
I said back at in 2024, I told this to one of my close friends. Is it's like I just have this feeling like 2024 is a year of transition and 2025 is a year of destination, where it's like you're finally getting to where you need to be. And for us,
I like that.
You know, it was a lot of hard work on the game. There was a lot of stuff in the background that we were just taking care of. You know, family stuff. Cleaning up issues and whatnot. Unfortunately, my cat passed away. So it was like a lot of just stuff happening in the background that was, it was a lot of things going on. Now it feels like the dust is finally settled and it's time to kind of like, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get back to work. And that's sort of where we're at now. Like, a lot of things financially weren't working well for us. Financially, I think things are feeling a little bit better right now. There's more projects we've got going on. Now it's just a matter of like, can we manage everything and, ride this water slide without flying off the edge?
Oh yeah, then that's the trick. You just keep going. I've often thought, I should say, that slow but consistent growth is better than a meteoric rise, which is to say, like, I notice you've been working on this channel for at least a year, and I've certainly got, a couple of years of slow build, and with time and investment and energy, consistency beats raw skill, raw talent, whatever you want to call it. And honestly, as long as you stay consistent with whatever it is you want to get done, I truly and definitively believe that you can get just about anything done. So honestly, power to you. I intend to keep chugging forward. It looks like you're chugging forward just good. And so honestly, if you keep up pretty much anything, you're going to get it done.
I appreciate it. And I definitely feel the same, just keep at it. It's hard to believe. I looked back at the beginning of your channel. You started this 6 years ago.
Yeah, technically, but it's only been the last 2 years. No, I'm sorry, 3 now.
Yeah.
Wow. That I actually sat down and said just what I said. I'm like, okay, I'm going to consistently do this. 6 years was like a little test. And then about the 3-year mark ago, I was like, I'm going to try and make a video every week. And pretty consistently done that. And now it's actually paying off. Like, it took all the way until this year for growth to occur, but growth has occurred. And I intend to just keep that track.
You got it.
That's how it goes.
You got it. And for everybody listening, go watch The Voice of Iron. Go check out his channel and then listen to some of his stuff on there. I'll have to watch some more of the stuff myself, but
same with yours.
100%. But thank you so much for coming on the channel. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our lovely guests as we conclude this part 2 episode?
Just thank you all for listening to our voices.
Awesome. Well, you heard it from him, so everybody take care. Happy New Year to everyone. I know this is technically part 2 and towards the end of January, but Happy New Year to everyone nonetheless. Have a great one, and as always, stay awesome.